Call of Duty fans, hello and welcome back. IHOLDSHIFT. We've got power rankings going for you guys today as Division A completes, and we're about to commence with Division B. So I thought we'd do a nice little recap for you guys, as we do every single week that there have been games being played. Let's go ahead and dig into it. I'm excited to see what you guys think about this. I feel like we're getting pretty close to nailing these, I would say, just about every single time, with a couple of exceptions. But let's go ahead and start things off at the very bitty bottom. That'll be Denial, still down here. You know, I'm excited to see what these guys are able to do after a couple of weeks of practice, but the fact is, I just do not have a lot of faith that this roster is going to work. Now, here's what this team has going for them. Joe and Bance are actually two pretty competent frontline SMGs. Interesting considering that it was Zero that was running an SMG with them previously, and now Zero's doing very well on FaZe running an ICR. My biggest question marks come down to Alex. And I would say probably Rated, because they've both been switching kind of a little bit back and forth. We've seen there have been certain maps where Alex will run an ICR, Rated will run a KN or something like that. But there are mostly situations where I just don't know what Alex is doing, flat out. And then that's my biggest question mark is this guy going to be able to turn things around? Now, if he is, and Joe and Bance can actually play consistently, we know Brack and what he's able to do, but there's rumors that Brack might be dealing with some issues with Denial. The thing is, this team I just do not think is going to be able to do very well, flat out. I just don't see them doing very well in the search, and I don't see them doing very well in the control. Will they be able to do some things with hardpoint? I think probably yes. However, I'm very worried about what they're going to be able to do in the more objective-based gameplay of the search and destroy and control. 15th spot, Luminosity. Well, I mean, I don't know how you can deny it. I almost put them dead last because of the switch up not having Gunless involved, but there was an announcement today saying that Formal will be full-time running the Maddox, Ricky will be full-time running the ICR or AR slot, which is good news. The bad news is this team won a total of 4 maps in the last 2 weeks. And they didn't look any better versus Optic. I mean, Optic was trolling a little bit, so we didn't get a full look as far as what Ricky can do. But this is going to be the team that goes into Anaheim. Yikes. They're going to be probably in a very difficult pool. You would assume they will be the last seed coming out of Division A, which is not good. There's really nothing else we can say about that. This team is pretty much kaput until we see a Rostermania period. And then they're going to be struggling to get things going before they get to playoffs, and more importantly, until champs. Not the greatest of years for Luminosity. Definitely not the way that you planned it to go, considering what that roster looked like at the beginning of the year. Sitting a little bit higher up, I still have UIU in here. And my biggest thing with UIU is the simple fact that their second week of gameplay actually looked pretty good. They were 2-1 in their second week, but of course that came off of having them not doing very well throughout their first week. They only win 2 total sets, but there were a couple of games that were close. The Reciprocity 5-game set and the Midnight 5-game set. And they were able to take a map off of Optic as well. And then, of course, the reverse sweep versus Gen G was relatively impressive. Now, Zaptius, again, remember, he is technically new to this squad as of the restart of the regular season, and he looked better. Royalty's also been picking it up. So as far as production from the full roster, UIU is starting to find that out of all 5 players, something that they have not been able to find since really around the Pro League qualifier time. So I'm excited to see what this team's able to do in Anaheim. I would not be surprised if them surprise some people, but as far as my faith, as far as being able to consider them for bets, it's not super high right now unless they're playing up against teams that are also in this same kind of bottom 8 style. I would say not even bottom 8, probably more like bottom 6, bottom 5. I think the top 3 teams in the bottom 8 are actually pretty solid. Sitting a little bit higher than that, I still have Elevate. My biggest question mark is the French players, flat out. Whalers and Brezzy, you know, it's been really strange because Skies has been all over the place as far as what weapon is he going to run this game. Then you've got Profizi and Brezzy working the front line with the Sogs, M. Ruiz with the Maddox. This roster could be so much better if they found a good 4th and 5th. I think that 3 players in this roster are pretty solid. It just comes down to, I think this roster as a whole will run into some issues. And honestly, I almost put them below UIU. It was just hard to because of the struggles that UIU was going through. So they will sit in the 13th spot. Moving up into the 12th spot, not as high as I would have liked to see Midnight go, but they will be staying here just outside the top 12, or rather just inside the top 12, which is where they finished at London. And the 0-4 second week is not great. You would have loved to have seen them put out a little bit more production here. They were only able to win 2 games. That was against the worst 2 teams in their division in UIU and LG, and they almost got reverse swept versus UIU, if you remember back to that. And the fact that they're not able to take any maps off of what are teams that are essentially higher than them, they did take 1 map off of EG and 1 map off of FaZe. Everything else was a stomp 0-3. it just leaves me a little bit worried. There are so many moments where this team looks so good. The biggest thing comes down to they need to be able to close out games. They did not close out a lot of hard points in this last 2 weeks, as they had a lot of losses that were 215 or 220 plus to 250, which is never what you like to see, and most of them came after they were already up. So for Midnight, you just got to go back to the drawing board. My biggest thing about this squad is, will they be able to find a way to compose themselves and close out these games? And that if they were to, they would have had a better week, flat out, better 2 weeks. They would have at least won a couple more maps, but flat out, they only won 2 hard points. I know it doesn't really seem like that. That stat surprised me as well. They only won 2 hard points, considering how close most of their games were. That's not what you want to see. 11th spot, Enigma 6. Keep your eye on this team come Division B. I think they're going to be a very good pick for bets coming through the first week, especially as, depending on their schedule, I actually haven't looked at their schedule, but I think this team's very good. And with 2 more weeks of them coming together, I think you start to see them close out more hard points. Keep in mind, this team only lost a single search and destroy. And that search and destroy loss was a little bit hard, but it was against Optic, a team they nearly beat. They lost 3 games. All 3 of the games they lost at London were to top 4 teams that placed at London. Their one win was versus Reciprocity, who ended up finishing top 8. So this team, I think, is going to be heavily slept on. Keep your eye on them. I'm very excited to see what E6 is going to be able to do come Division B. In the 10th spot, Gen G. Gosh, it hurts to put them this low, but how can you not put them? I almost put them lower than this, to be honest. They only win 2 games. It was a 3-0 versus Midnight and a 3-1 versus LG. It's not good. Those are 2 of the worst teams in the division, and they lost to UYU in 5 after being reverse swept. Also losing to Reciprocity in 5 and losing to Optic in 5. You have to close out these sets. This is a better team than a top 10 team. It should be a better team than a top 10 team. Let me phrase it that way. It should be a better team than a top 10 team. But they simply cannot close games out. Kind of the similar situation to Midnight in a couple of hardpoint games. A couple of 230s plus loss. 230 to 250, a 246 to 250, and a 243 to 250. Those would have been big games. That was versus FaZe, Reciprocity, as well as Evil Geniuses. Search and Destroy, not much better. There's a number of games in here. A 4-6 loss, 2 4-6 losses, and 2 5-6 losses in the search. And then the control, whatever. It's the control. This has never been a very solid control team. They've been okay at best, not really much more beyond average. And then their search and destroy, we've had moments where they're great at search, and then their hardpoint, moments where they're great at hardpoint. You cannot falter if you're Gen G in these instances against teams that are lower than you. I cannot in good faith put them any higher than that. I wanted to, but how could you? It's too hard to do. In the 9th spot, a little bit of a boost here for Evil Geniuses. Yes, they started off hot with a 4-0 start. They would lose their last 3. Granted, 2 of them were in Game 5 fashion, and they played Optic well, even though they did get 3-0'd. This team is good, and I think that realistically, come Anaheim, this is a very possible top 8 squad. It just comes down to things like what pool are they in, and are they able to start in the winner's bracket? Because if this team starts in the loser's bracket, you put their back up against the wall. I don't know how much metal they have to get through the bad side of the loser's bracket, especially if it's a difficult one. We've seen some wild things happen in the loser's bracket. So for me, it comes down to a top 8 performance for this team is going to be likely if they have a favorable pool or if they make it into the winner's bracket. If they don't, though, it would be, I think, a little bit more of a stretch. But this team, I think, could very well make some moves. I don't see them finishing top 6, but potentially top 8, absolutely. Let's jump over to the top 8, though. Speaking of, we'll go up into the top 8, starting with Reciprocity up here. Just a 1 move for them, or one placement bump for them. They, again, with the substitution for Tommy going out because of his mental health struggles and bringing in Dens, this team has been flawless. They went 4-0 on the week, and they looked perfect, and they were perfect in the search and not the search and destroy. They're perfect in the hard point and nearly perfect in the search and destroy. Their only 2 losses in search were a 5-6 loss to EG and a 4-6 loss to UYU. My biggest worry for this team comes down to what are they going to be able to do in the control. They only won a single control map this week, and that was against Midnight, and that took them all the way to round 5 to do it. So, they actually won another game versus Optic. They won the control versus Optic on Arsenal, but that was with Tommy. So, I'm interested to see what this team's going to be able to do come Anaheim. They have a lot of practice ahead of them. They need to get better across the board because a lot of their hardpoint wins were very narrow, as well as a lot of their search wins. And then, of course, not doing so great in the control department. A lot of things to work on for reciprocity come these next 2 weeks. Hopefully they get some scrim time and they can start to iron those things out. In the 7th spot, sitting here, Splice. We've talked about them many a time. They only went 3-5 in the hardpoint. This team has been very average across the board since they finished in the top 3 back at Vegas as well as at Fort Worth. This squad needs to do better, flat out. It just needs to be a better team. As the roster that they have, they need to be producing higher than that. They're an even 22-22 in hardpoint, a 16-14 in search, and a 15-9 in control. I would not be surprised to see them make a move for somebody like Gunless to bump this squad up. I don't know. I couldn't flat out put a finger on one specific person as far as they're the ones that are causing the issue, because everyone has been playing in the relative same ballpark. It just comes down to, will they actually make a change? Because Aqua is one of the dedicated Maddoxes on this team, and so is Looney. So that'll be interesting to see if they will actually decide to make a move or not come Rostermania. But of course, we still have 2 weeks to watch them play, so we'll evaluate past that. In the 6th spot, a slight bump down, mostly due to a team getting bumped up, but I still have Heretics up here. Again, another average team across the board, but they've played a very difficult schedule so far, and, well, the games that they should win, they typically do. But more importantly, the Heretics squad, the thing I like most about this team is that they do end up beating teams that are in the top 5 every now and again, especially a team like Splice. When they were up there, they were doing very well against Splice. They've also done relatively well against Luminosity when they were big. They were 1-0 against Luminosity. They have also done well against Team Envy, a 1-1 split right there. They just haven't been able to crack the top 3, having gone 1-1 with E United, but losing twice to 100 Thieves and losing once in 3-0 fashion to Optics. So this team clearly has some work to do. Again, very excited to see them play, and I would not be surprised to see people sleeping on them in the bet line, so keep your eyes on that squad. In the 5th spot, a 3-move boop here for FaZe Clan up in the top 5 for me. I almost put them top 4, but I still have some concerns about this search and destroy before I can move them there. Yes, their respawn has been incredible. They only lost 2 hard points. They did not lose a single control over the last 2 weeks. That is very, very impressive, but they're not doing very well in the search and destroy. Couple of 1-6 losses and an 0-6 loss in there. You don't love to see that. They did do relatively okay as far as win-losses in the search, but it's something that you watch them play, and the games that they win, it feels like they kind of got lucky winning them. In the games that they lose, you can tell they're just not prepared. So I'm interested to see this team grow. The good news for FaZe Clan is that they seem to be very good across every single hardpoint, and with the exception of frequency, which they have not played yet as this roster, they have been very good in every control map. So that's very, very good for them. I would definitely expect to see them potentially pull a top 4 placement at Anaheim if they're able to keep that momentum up and get better at the search. That's the big caveat, is if they're able to get better at the search. In the top 4, still hitting my 4th spot. I still have Team Envy here. You know, there's really no real way to pinpoint why this team did as well as it did at London, finishing top 4 there, as they do have a couple of new additions. You talk about Pharaoh and Decimate adding to the roster. They have looked very good with that addition of those 2 players. Decimate is absolutely incredible, but this team has only been okay across every single mode. 8-7 in hardpoint at London, 4-5 at search, 5-3 at control. It just came down to the fact that they're able to beat so many teams that were technically listed above them beforehand. They got a 3-1 versus E United in the pools. They were able to take down Enigma 6, 3-1, Splice 3-1, Luminosity 3-2, and Gen G at 3-1. At that point in time, I think everybody had all of those teams above them. So that's the reason why I sit here, but they have to perform come this next division, or they will vastly slide down my rankings after the first week. If they do not have a good first week and they go 1-3 or 1-2, whatever they play, they might fall down to my 8th spot, just simply because I need to see convincing results from this Team Envy squad just for them to retain the 4th spot, if not even move up a little bit further. In the 3rd spot, a little bit of a flip between 3 and 2. I have E United sitting down here, and we'll just go ahead and show the 2nd as well. Optic I have bumping up to the 2nd spot. Flat out, it just came down to the fact that Optic did everything they needed to do, in my mind, to be a number 2 team over E United. Now, that very well could switch. Again, this is simply because of the recency of them winning their 7 games, but the fact that they were able to go 3-0 versus the teams they should beat, and then they were able to get a Game 5 win versus FaZe and Gen G, plus the 3-1 over Reciprocity, That is good for me. The biggest thing for this team comes down to their control. It has not been very stellar lately. They did end up a little bit better off here as they were able to clean things up with a 3-2 win versus LG and then 2 3-0s versus Evil Geniuses and Midnight. Those are things you like to see. All of it has come on frequency, though. We have not seen this team play Seaside or Gridlock since London, and I'm interested to see how that has changed and if they have gotten any better there. And then in my number 1 spot, 100 Thieves. You can't deny it. I'm interested to see what this squad does throughout the next 2 weeks. We could be seeing some swap-ups in the top 4. Really, maybe even the top 5 as far as who the best team in the game might be. Well, we'll say top 3. I can't in good faith, unless Envy goes 7-0, I don't think I could sit there and say that Envy's the best team in the game unless they go 7-0, and even still, that would be a consideration. But for 100 Thieves, they're up there for now. We'll see how their next 2 weeks go. We might have some very interesting conversations in the comments section below. If 100 Thieves start to lose and E United start to win, there might be some slip-ups there as far as what we see. But that's what we got for now. Excited to watch Division B. Coming up next on the channel, we will be doing a recap and a setup of what the first week of games will look like in Division B. Also with that will be our betting predictions with our bookies' worst nightmare. We had a very good last 2 weeks in the betting department with Division A. I'm excited to hopefully keep that going for you guys in Division B. Until next time, though, hope you guys keep holding it down. Later, bye-bye.